Hi, how are you? I'm Mr. Muso. Today we want to talk about the Congress system. The Congress system, which started to operate soon after the Vienna settlement of 1815. So we see that the statesmen, they met on the Vienna settlement in 1815, whereby they to redraw the map of Europe, whereby they to divide the spoils, they to share the territories equally amongst themselves. We talked about the issue of the balance of power, whereby the allied powers, they had to equally share the territories amongst themselves. They also restored those rulers who had been removed by Napoleon during the Napoleonic era. So there was the restoration of legitimate rulers, those rulers who were forcibly removed by Napoleon during the Napoleonic era. So they were restored to their positions on the Vienna settlement. Then on the Vienna settlement, there was the ignorance of nationalism and liberalism. They totally ignored these two principles. They were regarded as a threat. They were regarded as an anathema. And if they were considered, they were likely to plunge Europe into another war. So these two principles were ignored on the Vienna settlement. So this is what transpired on the Vienna settlement. Who were the statesmen who were there on the Vienna settlement? There was Francis I of Prussia, Franco from Prussia. There was the Tsar Alexander from Russia. There was Castlereagh from Britain. There was Metternich from Austria. So these were the leaders who were there on the Vienna settlement. Then France was represented by Talleyrand. So when they created buffer zones, when they shared territories equally amongst themselves, the BOP, the balance of power, when they restored those rulers who had been removed by Napoleon during the Napoleonic era, when they totally ignored the principles of nationalism and liberalism, they went on to suggest that we are supposed to do something, gentlemen. Who are these gentlemen? Francis Prussia, Tsar Russia, Metternich Austria, Castlereagh. Before we go, gentlemen, we need to guarantee ourselves that in the event of being attacked by France in the near future, we are supposed to be secure. So what should we do here before we go, gentlemen? No, before we go, gentlemen, let's do something else, gentlemen. What are you thinking about? What are you thinking? Okay, I've got something that I want to talk. Tell us what you want us to tell us. I am thinking also of us as allied powers. We should recruit troops that we put at the borders of France. Yes, we had created buffer zones, but on top of that, let's create an allied troop. Let's recruit an allied troop that we are going to station at the borders of France. Yay! That is a good idea, brilliant idea. Let's recruit troops that we put at the borders of France. So we see troops now being recruited, and these troops now, they were stationed at the borders of France. Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, they were agreeing that they were supposed to do so. They were supposed to recruit troops to be stationed at the borders of France. So when that was decided, troops were recruited and they were stationed at the borders of France. So we are seeing that soon after the Vienna settlement, the allied powers, they had to recruit troops that they put at the borders of France. And by so doing, we are saying that the Congress system was a success. This was a success. It clearly shows the beginning of the Congress system that it was a success because all the four countries, all the big powers, they agreed. So the stationing of troops at the borders of France, it was a success. So when this took place now, we see that the Allied powers later on, they formulated what was known as the quadruple alliance. Quadruple means four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Quadruple. Quadruple, Austria, Prussia, Russia, and also we are talking about Britain. These four, they constituted the quadruple alliance. So when they formulated this alliance, they agreed to work together, they agreed to consult each other, they agreed that they were supposed to cooperate in the event of future problems taking place in Europe. So the formulation of the quadruple alliance, it was a success. Why? It is because these countries were agreeing to work together. They were agreeing to integrate. They were agreeing to cooperate in the event of future problems taking place in Europe. So when this took place now, later on, the Tsar of Russia went on to suggest the formulation of the Holy Alliance. Gentlemen, Tsar, what is it? Gentlemen, Tsar, what is it? I am thinking of something else. What are you thinking? I am thinking of the Holy Alliance. Can you explain, Tsar, what are you talking about? I am thinking that we should apply Christian principles when we control, when we rule those small states that we took on the Vienna. Remember, on the Vienna settlement, these statesmen, they repossessed those areas that they lost to Napoleon during the Napoleonic era. So they had to share those territories equally amongst themselves through the so-called the balance of power. So the Tsar of Russia was suggesting that they were supposed to apply Christian principles to control those small states that they equally shared on the Vienna settlement. Metternich: Sir, what are you saying? I am saying let's apply Christian principles. A high sounding nothing. You are saying nothing. A high sounding nothing. Oh, casserage. What is it, casserage? A sublime mysticism of nonsense. The Tsar, you are nonsense, you are empty. You just said something, but you are empty. That is nonsensical. Oh, those are powerful terms. I will start with Metternich. A high sounding nothing, nothing. You're nothing. That is, what are you saying? Casserage. A sublime miss of it's nonsense that you're talking about. Why did the Tsar, why did Metternich, why did Casserage criticize the Tsar of Russia? It is because the Holy Alliance, it contradicted what they had agreed on the Vienna settlement. Remember, on the Vienna settlement, they had ignored the principles of nationalism and liberalism. So the Holy Alliance contradicted the ignorance of nationalism and liberalism. So that is why the Tsar was criticized by Metternich, by Casserage. The criticism against the Tsar clearly showed that the Congress system was not going to last for a long period of time. We are seeing that the first cracks, tension of the Congress system, it rose here on the Holy Alliance. So that is why some scholars would want to believe that the Holy Alliance marked the beginning of the demise of the Congress system. Why? Because the criticism against this Tsar, it was so much powerful. The wording that was used to criticize him, it was so powerful. You can imagine if I say to you, nonsensical, oh, too powerful a term. If I say high sounding, nothing, nothing, you are empty, it's so powerful. So that on its own created cracks, it created division. It clearly showed that the Congress system was not going to last for a long period of time. So when this took place now, 1816, 1817, 1818, this period, So during 1816 to 1818, uprisings started to take place in Spain. Uprisings started to take place in Italy. The people in Spain, they were revolting against Ferdinand VII. Remember the people in Spain, we see that they were given back Ferdinand VII. Why Ferdinand VII? It is because on the Vienna settlement, there was the restoration of the legitimate rulers, and Ferdinand VII was restored in what? In Spain. So the people in Spain preferred Ferdinand to be replaced by his son Charles IV. So we see uprisings taking place. We want the Charlie. We want the Charlie. Ferdinand, we want the Charlie. People in Spain were revolting. In Italy, the same applies. The Italians were controlled by the Austrians. 3/4 of Italy, it was controlled by Austria. So because of that now, the people in Austria, they wanted to be, the people in Italy, they wanted to be independent from what? From Austria. This period marked the beginning of the process of the unification of Italy. The people in Italy wanted to be unified from Italy, from what? From Austria. So there was people in Italy wanting to be unified against Italy. So because of these problems now, these statesmen, they met in 1818 at the Congress of aix-la-chapelle. Aix-la-chapelle. So when they met at the Congress of aix-la-chapelle, they were compelled to solve problems in Spain. They were compelled to solve problems in Italy. So the Congress of aix-la-chapelle in 1818, it was aimed at, number one, solving problems in Italy and in Spain. Number two, it was also aimed at admitting France in the concert of Europe, admitting France in the quadruple alliance, becoming the quadruple what? Alliance. Number three, it was also aimed at removing those troops that I talked about that were stationed at the borders of what? Of France. Number four, they also wanted to stop activities of slave trade, slavery, and Barbary pirates. So the Congress of aix-la-chapelle, number one, they wanted to find a solution on how best they could solve problems in Italy. They could solve problems in Spain. Number one, Italy and Spain, agenda number one. What should we do, gentlemen? Austria, Prussia, Russia, and also Britain. What should we do, gentlemen? What should we do, gentlemen? We see that Britain stood up earlier to say that let's not interfere in the affairs of the small states. So we see that Britain refused that the great powers refused that the Allied powers were supposed to interfere and stop the revolts in Spain and in Italy. Britain, but see, if we intervene in Spain and in Italy, those revolts are going to be thwarted. Let's do that. Britain, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Britain refused to enter and stop revolts in Spain and in Italy. Okay, we have seen it. So, number two, let's talk about the issue of France. France, we see that it followed what we designed on the Vienna settlement. The next ruler of France after Napoleon, Louis XVIII, he was given a charter, a constitutional charter that he was supposed to use, and he was not a threat to Europe. So by following the charter that he was given, it meant that France was not a threat to Europe. So they had to remove the troops from the borders of France. Is there anyone with a problem with that? No, it's okay, it's okay. So this one was a success. Let's also admit France in the concert of Europe, quadruple 4, now France 5 becoming what? Quadruple alliance. Is there a problem? It's okay. So the admission of France in the concert of Europe, according to D. Thompson, it was a success. The removal of troops from the borders of France, it was also a success. Why? Because these countries, they agreed, they cooperated on these two deliberations involving France. Then let's move on and talk about agenda number 4. Let's talk about the issue of Barbary pirates. Let's talk about the issue of slave trade, slavery. Britain, I'm suggesting that we should use this way and that way to stop trade, slavery, and suggesting that we should use this way, that way to stop slave trade, slavery, and barbary pirates. Britain and Russia, they clashed. Clashing. Why? Because they both benefited from these activities. So they clashed on how best they were supposed to stop the activities of slave trade, slavery, and barbary pirates. So by clashing Britain and Russia, it clearly showed that the Congress system, it was not going to last for a long period of time. So here we are seeing two successes. One success on the issue of France's removal of troops, another success on the issue of admission of France. These were successes. Then here on the aix-la-chapelle, we are seeing failures. Failures whereby Britain had to disagree that the Allied powers were supposed to enter and stop revolts in Spain, and Britain, Russia clashing over slave trade, slavery, and barbary pirates. So by so doing now, these clashes were not healthy. These clashes contributed to the collapse of the Congress system. Let's move on and talk about the next Congress. The Allied powers, they once again met in 1820, and this resulted in the so-called the Congress of troppau. At Troppau, they met again. Why are they meeting? It is because of the previous meeting again. They did not solve problems in Spain and in Italy. So when they met here, they wanted to stop our problems in Spain and in Italy. Uprising. People were rising in Spain. People were rising in Italy. So when they met here, they were trying to find a solution on how best they were supposed to stop activities in Spain and in Italy. So when they met here, we see that Britain continued with her stance. She continued that the Allied powers, she continued that the great powers were not supposed to enter Spain. They were not supposed to enter Italy and stop these revolts. She was against the policy of intervention. But Britain, that is Austria, but Britain, that is Russia, but Britain, that is Prussia, let's try to enter Spain. Let's try to enter Italy and stop these revolts. I've already said it's not good. Let's not enter Spain. Let's not enter Italy. I don't want to hear anything about that. I'm Britain. I'm declared. I don't want. Oh, Britain. Okay, sit down. We have heard what you are saying. We are but try. So we see that serious clashes again took place between Britain and the other Allied powers. So because of that now, the Congress of Troppau, it was adjourned. Adjourned, it means that they were supposed to go, and after some time, after taking a break, they were supposed to come and continue again with the Congress of Troppau. So the Congress of Troppau was adjourned. So when it was adjourned, they later on met at the Troppau Protocol. At the Troppau Protocol. Troppau Protocol. A protocol, it is a method, it is a way that should be done, how things should be done. So we see that they met at Troppau Protocol. But here at Troppau Protocol, Britain sent a representative. Britain, we see that she was frustrated on what took place at the Troppau. So here at Troppau Protocol, she had to send a representative. So when they met at Troppau, Austria, Prussia, and Russia did not waste time. Gentlemen, we are here. We don't want to waste much of our time. We know that the problem is in Spain. We know that the problem is in Italy. We are supposed to do something about Italy and Spain. Yeah, that is true, that is true, that is true. Gentlemen, we should recruit Allied troops that we are supposed to send, that we're supposed to deploy in Spain and in Italy. Yeah, that is okay, that is okay. Britain, but I was saying that we are not supposed to do that. Britain is against the policy of intervention. Yeah, keep quiet. You are a representative. We are talking about practical things here. We want to stop revolts in Spain. There are problems in Spain. They can't continue like that. There are problems in Italy. Things can't continue like that. You keep quiet from Britain because you're just a representative. So here we see that Britain was bulldozed by Austria, Prussia, and Russia, and they agreed to recruit troops that they were supposed to send and go and stop revolts in Spain and in Italy. So when this took place now, we are seeing again rift, we are seeing again tension between Britain, Austria, between Austria, Prussia, Russia versus Britain. So that clearly shows that the Congress system, it was doomed from what? From the start. Why doomed from the start? It was because of these differences that were taking place. So as a result of that now, this led to the collapse. This led to the downfall, to the demise of the Congress system. That is why other scholars want to believe that the Congress system, it was doomed from the start. Why doomed? Because of what took place at the Holy Alliance. Why doomed? Because of the aix-la-chapelle, whereby Britain still maintained a policy of non-intervention, whereby Britain clashed with Russia. Here at troppau, Britain clashing with Austria, Prussia, and also Russia, clearly showing that the Congress system was not going to last for a long period of time. So having said this now, we see that the Allied powers met once again at the Congress of Laibach. Why did they meet at Laibach? It was because of these uprisings. They were continuously taking place. They did not stop even if the Allied powers, Austria, Prussia, and also Russia, met at Troppau protocol and to deploy troops. These revolts did not stop. So here now we see that at Laibach, when they met, how are you, the Tsar? I'm good, Tsar. How are you, Prussia? I'm good, Franco. How are you, Metternich, Austria? I'm good. Gentlemen, we are here for serious business. We don't want to waste time, gentlemen. We are supposed to deploy troops to go and stop revolts in Spain and Italy. That is what we adopted a Troppau protocol. Is that so, comrades? Yes, my comrades, that is good, my comrades. Let's deploy troops to go and stop revolts in Spain and Italy. Yay! So troops were now deployed at Laibach to go and stop revolts in Spain and also revolts in Italy. So when they deployed troops in Spain and in Italy, those uprisings were stopped. So when they were stopped, now Britain was angered, and Britain was quoted as saying, "Each nation for itself and God for us all." Each nation for itself and God for us all. Meaning to say that Britain was not pleased about what Austria, Prussia, and Russia did at Laibach, that is deploying troops to stop revolts in Spain and in Italy. So this clearly shows that the Congress system was not going to last for a long period of time. So when this took place now, we see that in 1822, revolts took place in Turkey. We see that the people in Greece, they revolted against Turkey. So when they revolted against Turkey, the people in Greece, we see that Russia, if you go to Dennis Richards, there is a map there on page 63. You are going to see that map. On that map now, we are going to see that at the top there is Russia. Just below Russia there is the Black Sea, and we see the Ottoman Empire. So when the Greeks revolted in 1822, Russia quickly deployed troops to go and stop the Greek revolts. When they did that now, revolts were stopped, but Britain was surprised on why Russia entered alone and stopped the revolts in Greece. So because of this now, Britain had to call for a conference, and this Congress was known as the Congress of Verona. It was called in 1822. So when it was called in 1822, here we see that they were interested in solving the problems that were taking place in Greece. So when they met here, they they managed to come together, they managed to stop the revolts that had earlier on occurred in Greece. But Britain suspected that Russia wanted to have monopoly in Turkey, that Russia wanted to have monopoly in Greece. So because of that now, we see an element of mistrust, we see an element of jealousy, we see an element of suspicion developing between Britain and Russia. Remember, Britain and Russia clashed earlier on at the Congress of aix-la-chapelle on slave trade, slavery, and by pirates. So here again, the Britain was suspecting, why did Russia earlier on enter alone? So that on its own again contributed to the collapse of the Congress system. So when that was solved in 1824, the Greeks once again revolted against Turkey. When they revolted against Turkey, Britain quickly entered Turkey and stopped the revolts in Greece. So when that took place now, Britain had to invite other powers to come again and solve the problems in Greece, in Turkey. Greece was under Turkey. You remember when you talked about the World War One in Form 4, some are doing World War One, Mussolini, Hitler, and so forth. On the World War One, talking about the Balkan Wars or the Balkan Crisis, you talked about Bulgaria, Montenegro, Romania, Greece, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia. We see that Greece, it was under Turkey. So when the revolts took place, Britain quickly intervened and stopped the revolts. So when she intervened and stopped the revolts, what happened? We see that she invited other powers, but Russia was not invited. Why Russia? It is because of what Russia had done earlier on in 1822. Britain suspected that Russia wanted to have monopoly over the Ottoman Empire. So by not inviting Russia, it clearly shows that Britain suspected Russia, and as a result of that, now clearly shown that the Congress system was not going to last for a long period of time. So when that took place now, we see that Britain went on to ally herself with USA. She went to USA and they had to sign what was known as the Monroe Doctrine. On the Monroe Declaration or the Monroe Doctrine, we see that USA and Britain agreed that any country that was going to threaten their South American colonies, which were these South American colonies, we are talking about Chile, we are talking about Colombia, we are talking about Mexico, and also Brazil. Chile, Mexico, Brazil, and Mexico. Any country that was going to threaten these countries, it meant that Britain and USA were going to attack that country. Why the Monroe Doctrine? It is because Britain had to inform USA that her friends in the quadruple, later on the quadruple alliance, they wanted to dominate Europe. So she had to assure Britain that if they try to do funny tricks on their South American colonies, they were supposed to attack Austria, Prussia, and Russia, including France. So when that took place now, we are clearly seeing that Britain no longer trusted her friends, and that on its own contributed to the collapse of the Congress system. The element of mistrust, the element of suspicion leading to the collapse of the Congress system. So we are seeing that Britain was responsible for the demise of the Congress system to a greater extent. So when this took place now, in 1824, France under Charles X invaded Spain. Revolts in Spain continued, and Charles, that is the time when he came to power, he was overzealous. He wanted to do like Napoleon Bonaparte, to have that adventurous foreign policy. He invaded Spain. Spain is close to France. So when that took place now, Britain concluded that the members of the quadruple alliance, they wanted to dominate Europe. They wanted to have influence in Europe. So that on its own clearly showed that the Congress system, it was dead. The last Congress, it was held in 1825, the so-called the Congress of St. Petersburg. So this Congress of St. Petersburg, it was only attended by few countries. It was done in Russia. By that time now, according to Dennis Thompson, the concept of Europe, it was dead. The concept of Europe, it was by no means dead. Why? It was because of so many elements of jealousy, elements of mistrust, elements of non-interventionist policy of Britain, leading to the demise, to the downfall, to the collapse of the Congress system. So this is what transpired on the Congress system. I've talked about the Congress of aix-la-chapelle. I've talked about the Congress of Troppau. I've talked about the Troppau Protocol. I've talked about the laibach. I've talked about Verona. So this is what transpired on the Congress system. However, there were other factors that led to the downfall, to the demise of the Congress system. Which are these factors? Number one, we see that the original founders of the Congress system, they were dead. Castlereagh had committed suicide, he was dead. Alexander the First was dead, he was succeeded by Nicholas the First, and Castlereagh was succeeded by Canning. These leaders, these new leaders, they did not have that zeal of making sure that the Congress system was going to be a success. So because of that now, we see that their coming now did not lead to the success of the Congress system. Another factor is that the Congress system did not have a structure, that there was a chairman, a treasurer, committee members. That structure, the duties were not clearly specified. That is the duties that were supposed to be performed by these statesmen, by these countries on the Congress system. So by failing to have a well-defined structure led to the collapse, to the downfall of the Congress system. Another factor that led to the collapse of the Congress system, it was because of the ignorance of nationalism and liberalism. These two principles, they were ignored on the Vienna settlement, and as a result of ignoring these two principles, uprisings became the order of the day. And when the Allied powers met to solve these problems, to solve these uprisings, they clashed amongst themselves, leading to the collapse of the Congress system. So it was a blunder, that is ignoring nationalism and liberalism on the Vienna settlement of 1815. So basically, we are seeing that the part that was played by Britain is, to a great extent, it led to the collapse of the Congress system. Why? It was because Britain was the one that was refusing to intervene, was the one that was clashing with Russia and the other powers, and that on its own crippled the operation, the function of the Congress system, leading to the collapse of the Congress system. So that is what we have on the Congress system. Cheers, I'm Mr. Muso. Thank you.